What's up, guys? It's Mr. Tucker here. First of all, I want to give a shout out to George for joining the channel. I told you, brother, I appreciate everyone that, especially the organic community, for signing on. This video is not necessarily in reference to George, but this is in reference to another young man who I will let you remember your name anonymous, and anyone else that might listen and hear this, but also can relate. And it was just on my heart, and perhaps it's Sunday, I don't know, maybe this is some divine sort of intervention, but just a message I really wanted to share with you all. Never see yourself as disabled, unable to do something. I know a lot of times society and documentation has this way of giving us labels. Just, you have to learn to hear things and let them fall by the wayside at times and not take them personal. And believe me when I tell you, this is something that to this day, even I personally struggle with. I would even go as far as to say, even the progress of sometimes this channel with being vulnerable with content. I'm preaching to myself as well as to the choir on this one and anyone that'll listen. But this message today is about those of you who feel that in life you have some sort of a disability, some sort of ailment that limits your capability. Nothing limits your capability except for your mind. In fact, there is science behind this. And if you can prove in the comments that I'm wrong, please, by all means, I love you if you could just show me the research that defeats what I'm saying. But in nature, whenever you are deficient of one area, nature increases your capabilities in others, right? When someone loses sight, when they are disabled with the ability to see, they have heightened abilities in all the other areas to cover that sense. All right, that's one area. And I'll give you a great example of someone who's taken advantage of that. Think about someone like Stevie Wonder. You can argue he's probably the greatest instrumental musician, if not musical artist of all time. When you think about how long he's made music, the timeless hit singles and artistry, and just his work, how much it's touched and spanned across genres and reach and even age groups of range. Man is still making music, and he was making music, I believe, almost as before possibly my father was born, or close to, but still, that's just one example. But I would challenge you, when you have some type of a disability, a learning disability in particular, for those of you, because this is Justice by Mentoring, so we got to talk about the scholar, right? As well as being a gentleman. But on a scholarship tip, those of you that feel you have some type of a learning disability, or you have one of those common things, ADHD or dyslexia, one of the common ailments that usually when you get that label, you probably feel like, oh, I'm done. And that's not true. It's not true. In fact, when you have these types of learning disabilities, these chronically mislabeled often, by the way, but nonetheless, these chronic learning disabilities, especially ones where they consider you should take some type of a medication, and Mr. Tucker is going to strongly urge against that unless you've tried several different alternative ways of managing it, self-management, which is part of what I do, by the way, shady plug. But seriously, when you have these disabilities, you shouldn't see yourself as disabled, but you should see yourself almost like a mutant. Remember, go be a child for a moment. Be youthful with me. Think into, when we look into the comics, right? A lot of these guys had abilities. Their abilities made them different. And because they were different, people mislabeled them as being limited. In fact, they were more than that. They had powers beyond reach. They can do things that people couldn't imagine. And I'm going to tell you something. If you really lean into and do research, you'll find, and I challenge anyone with any learning disability, and you can go in the comments as well and tell me someone that succeeded with this disability. And Mr. Tucker will personally research to prove to you someone that overcame it. But the point that I'm making is some of the greatest imaginations that we have today came from people with learning disabilities. Often people that are artistic, that are extremely creative, that have done some of the most amazing work, have done so with some of these most common learning disabilities. You want to know why? Because it gave them superpowers. It gave them different ways to view and come into the world. And with that, they were creative and gave us art. I promise you, for you video game junkies, and no offense with the word junkie, okay? But seriously, if you look at some of your most fun and creative video games, I promise you, some of those guys that created some of that stuff, if you go back to the original minds, some of them are probably labeled as disabled, weird, or some type of a social disability of some sort, right? Because they had to look at the world differently. In fact, I'll tell you something. People that you would probably think are perfect, and when I say perfect, meaning regular for the sense of this conversation, meaning not labeled with some type of a disability or demonstrating any concrete causes that they may have one, they're usually boring. And these people, although there are many people that have still succeeded, they've often had to do so due to just working hard and overcoming odds, which is something that everybody does, but that group in particular, that's usually the only way they succeed. If you look at the social network, the movie about the Facebook guy, that guy had a social disorder, right? But look, he created, with a social disorder, he was able to create ultimately one of the greatest social network website platforms of all time. Isn't that ironic? I'm going to say that one more time. The guy with the probably social disorder created probably one of the greatest social networks of all time. So the guy that's got social problems created something for everybody to connect and be more social. How ironic. Because you want to know why? Because sometimes when people have issues, have disabilities, they lean into them and they find a strength there. And that's something that we can all do. So I've taken enough of your time. If you're still listening, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the support. Tell some of your friends, like, share, subscribe. Also, go over to shop.justinspireguys.com. We're really reimagining the membership. There's really cool videos and stuff in there that I love for you guys to see in full length. Most of the shorts that you see on YouTube, that's where you'll be able to see a lot of that content in full length. All proceeds go to powering Just Inspire and helping us create an organization one day that can really be impactful and do real work in the community. All right, currently I'm working out of a row house in Baltimore. I'm trying to get it in working order so that I can host events. Looking for help. Shady plug on that too, since I got you guys talking, and it's a Sunday, right? So this is like me passing around the collection plate. If you feel touched by the Lord, comment, get in touch with me. Let's work, man. I'm in Baltimore. I love to be in New York, and I'm trying to get back to North Carolina as well. Let's reconnect. Let's do stuff, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and also let's have an amazing week and stay just inspired. I'm out.